Hello there.
It's 2/22/22 today.
Yeah, I've been getting correspondence about that the whole day. And can you believe it? Lickety-split, Kortney is here. And we're listening to some subtle music in the background. This is Montevarius's C minor. I'm kidding, this is Doing It Sober Live. Welcome everybody. My name is Chris Snell, and ever gorgeous Daniela Park beside me. How are you doing, Danny?
I'm excited. I love Kortney. She's so fucking cool.
Well, I've been reading up about her. We're going to have a lot of fun. And here she sits. Kortney, welcome.
Hello. How are you?
Yay.
For our audiences, I've prepped a little something like a mini press kit. Let me get into that for you quickly. It's a mighty privilege to have someone who is by osmosis a preternatural all-rounder. It's always a personal pleasure of some note to see progress take various forms, the key word being progress, that very well takes precedence in today's guest. This figure of versatility has done it all. She's carved a figure of steel, launched both a fitness app and clothing line, and is also a first-time author. With the title boasting Crushing It, she tells a story about literally to fall, fight, and shine. With that said, make way, Steffi Cohen, Ronda Rousey, and Gina Carano. Kortney Olsen is in town. From the land that gave us John Laws, Kate Blanchett, and AC/DC, please help us welcome Kortney Olsen.
Yay.
Wow.
Welcome, Kortney. How are you?
Ella, I'm great. Thank you. Chris, that was I can't pin your accent, but you have one of those sex phone operator voices that just makes you want. I don't listen to podcasts very well, but if it was your voice, I would listen to it. So you might have a new subscriber here. Congratulations.
Hey, that's why I wanted to work
Thank you
with
so
them,
much,
because
Kortney.
I like that. I like that voice.
Stop it, the both of you. This is not about me. This is about Kortney. So, Kort, to kick off, tell us about your story, how you ended up from literally falling, fighting, and then starting to shine, as I mentioned in the intro.
Oh my gosh. How long do we have? I think I saw an hour. Is that right?
60
Yeah,
minutes
you
on
don't
the
have
dot.
to go too much into your story, but you've got so many great nuggets that I always hear you say, that you've got so much good stuff. And I don't know how we can pack it into 1 hour, but we got to understand where you came from. You had such a crazy past. So let's kind of see where you came from.
Yeah, that's and so I say that jokingly because I do think it's a great story, and that's why it took me 10 years to write my damn book, but it wound up being probably 200 pages longer than it needed to be, because I find that still the case as an addict and an alcoholic. I think my story is so good, and it's like, bitch, your story. So we all have one, right? It
Well,
just so
absolutely,
happens-
without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, and that's why you have this podcast, and it's brilliant. And I think it's phenomenal and great for anybody who's just getting into recovery to be able to have all of these additional pathways to connect and identify with. Because, 2.5 years ago, we didn't have all these pathways, and it was, just the traditional ones. And I mean, they work for the most part, but they certainly didn't work for me for the first 9 years. I had to do it different, because I'm so. And I don't recommend that for anybody, but I'll touch on that. I suppose I'll take you back. So growing up, I grew up in Northern California in a small town called GRRRL, which is the opposite end of LA. And I grew up in the rural country with an older brother, 8 years older than me, and a bunch of boys. So very, very much a tomboy. But a tomboy with big legs, unlike all of my friends, and a parent who was an alcoholic and severely, severely sick. And, of course, I always say this, but I always thought she was, or they were, I should say, want to oust the person, but, we're good friends today, and all is well. But they, were perceived as a bad person who needed to get good as opposed to a sick person that needed to get well. And as a result, I did the typical parents divorced around the age 9, go and live with the alcoholic and attempt to lead a normal life as a kid, but that doesn't work out usually for us. And instead, I started developing my isms, if you will, my inside of me's, roughly, at the end of elementary school. So by the time I got to junior high, I was counting calories, right? Because what on the surface it looked like was poor body image. I mean, poor is an understatement. I would call it more like crippling. And, I don't look a day 41, but I just turned 40, bitch. And when I was...
You're 20 years old with 20 years life experience.
That's exactly right. I was growing up in the time of Kate Moss, and I remember distinctly seeing her in a magazine, and it was like, I think she was 16 or 17, and her Calvin Klein ad, and she was standing on one foot with the other foot in like a flamingo, and her collarbones were sticking out, and I just knew that was what was considered beautiful, and that's what I was going to look like. And her legs are like the size of my forearm, and that was never going to work out. So yeah, by the time I got to high school, full-blown disorder, and on the outside though, very well put together, right? Super scholastic, excelling everywhere. And then by the time I got to my senior year of high school, that turned into methamphetamines. As the ASB president, captain of the cheerleading team, started the first girls golf team, in a Christian rock band. All these amazing things happening, yet here I am smoking meth because I can laugh now. And that's the beauty of us recovering, right?
Of course.
To do that. And eventually, without getting too sidetracked, I remember a couple of years ago, a business colleague of mine was sharing a story about her ex-lover who came to visit her in Germany, and he just fell off of the bar stool backwards and almost cut his finger off. This was during the holidays, the Christmas time. And she was so perplexed. And me and another alcoholic friend were just laughing our ass off, because we were like, God, and she was really upset. She had tears in her eyes, and here my friend and I are just pissing ourselves laughing, and that's the beauty though of this thing, is that we get to recover, we're recovered, and we get to look back and laugh at this shit, because is it funny that, I'm a senior in high school.
Sorry, I was holding.
I felt like that was important to point out, because if you're new and you're listening and you're like, what is wrong with these people? Know that you too will eventually get to this stage where you get to look back and say, I am so grateful for all this shit. I'm so grateful for this hot mess that was my life. Because now, oh yeah, say that again, Chris. Oh yeah.
I'm not going to say one damn word further.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah. But tell me something quickly, Kortney. You started your athletics career more or less in the.
You cut out.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
Just making dearly sure. You started your athletics career more or less about the time that you were still in active addiction, approaching the end and entering sobriety. Have I got that right, or am I a little off cue there?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was, I got to the end of my senior year, and a teacher said, okay, well, what have you been doing? You're either drinking and you become quite alcoholic, or you're smoking meth. Which is it? Mm-hmm. And of course, I told him, well, do you want us to tell your parents, or do you want to see a drug counselor? So I want to see a drug counselor. Went and saw the drug counselor. He said, okay, why'd you do it? And I said, because I wanted to be skinny. And he said, okay, I've got the perfect solution. I've got a boxing Golden Gloves former champion who is a heroin addict, and he's married to a nun. What could possibly go wrong? I went, and done. And as a 17-year-old girl who had 3 days clean, because I didn't start my drinking career until about 6 months after this event happened. And this man who was supposed to be my mentor, who was 72 at the time, totally took advantage of me and said, "Hey, I want to make you my next prize fighter before you retire, or before I retire. Come over to my house. We'll order some equipment, watch some tapes." Yes, this was back in the times of VHS. And I went over there, and he had given me a drink and a joint. And at that point, I hadn't smoked any pot, and it was laced with something else. And I woke up, and I know I'm not a big believer in trigger warnings, because life has no trigger warning, but for anybody, this might make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. But I woke up and this man was inside of me. And from that point, I was just a hot mess. This person never tried to contact me, because after I, got him off of me. But I had a pager back then. I don't know if you two can remember those, but I had a pager. Never paged me, never called. And, just even be like, don't tell anybody. So I built this story up in my head that it was my fault. And then I had led this man on, and, so on and so forth.
Isn't that always the premise?
A lot of the times it is. And, that might have even been the case, because growing up with an alcoholic parent, in my experience, I became a ridiculous people pleaser. And overly flirtatious, and had no capability of saying no. I could hardly even get those two words, or those two letters out of my mouth. So that incident is what spawned my alcoholism. So I went off to college at Sonoma State and stepped straight into alcoholism. Put one thing down, not realizing that I was just substituting one addiction for another, and turned out to be a blackout drinker straight away. And I got KO tattooed under, you can't see it so well now because of Prince. Prince's hair is kind of covering it up, but I held on to
the outline subtly.
Yeah, so KO, my initials, as well as despite the trauma that I had experienced, I don't say suffer now, because I've walked through that, and I don't see myself as a victim, but a victor. But I still wanted to live that life, and that became my alter ego. So that was KO. I was like, I'm going to be a world champion boxer, because I really thought that was my purpose, and that's why I had spent that year suffering and threw away all my scholarships and so forth my senior year. So I kind of continued down that path, and, did some various boxing. And by time my sophomore year rolled around, I was a full-blown alcoholic. Had wrecked my third Honda. I've wrecked 5 in total, so I'm still standing. Definitely can get behind the safety certificate of a Honda.
Well, it's a consumer vehicle. You can never go wrong with Honda.
That's right. So, by time I turned 21, I dropped out. I did 2 years of college, but I had the harsh realization that I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And I was meant to be the first female president of the United States of America. And here I am sitting in a meth cook's house with a gallon of Carlos Rossi in between my legs, So I ended up getting off to rehab. And even after rehab, I had 90 days clean and sober. And my cousin was like, Kortney's doing so well, she deserves a drink. And then, of course, I off for another 2 years. Back onto the pipe, so it was just this vicious circle. So even though I had been introduced to the rooms, I still could not accept the fact, because, I was younger, and I knew I didn't want to die, but I also did not want to accept that this was going to be my life, So I went back and forth for another several years. And then this last time around, I got into bodybuilding as a way out, as a new obsession, if you will. And it worked for a short period of time. I unfortunately hurt my back and then got addicted to pain pills. So because that wasn't my problem. right? It was just meth and drinking.
Right.
And my name was on the bottle, so it was fine. And I did, even though I was competitively bodybuilding. And that's what, the point I really wanted to make in my book as well is for people to realize that our mental health is not a reflection of what we look like on the outside. On the outside, just like I did my senior year of high school, it was very well put together. And, I was ripped. I had an 8-pack and, you'd think that I was fine, but here I am chewing up 8 Norco at a time. Right. So I eventually, June 14th, 2010, got my shit together. And for the final time, I said, okay, I surrender. And that's when I really sunk my teeth into the fellowship and the traditional path of, 12-step meetings. Mm-hmm. And it was out in Australia. And, it's a interesting part of the story, but I, at the same time, had discovered, arm wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and this new interesting world where I get paid several $100s an hour to arm wrestle men and to pick them up and carry them around. Right? This is so bizarre. I spent my whole life thinking that beauty was Kate Moss, and then stumbled into this world subsequently when I got sober, where I was being offered, $300-$400 an hour to just simply demonstrate my strength in a world where none of these men cared about any form of cellulite or dimples or, all these stupid quote unquote imperfections and flaws that I saw in myself. Like it was non-existent to them. And I got paid a shitload of money. It was just super bizarre. So anyway, I actually met my husband while I was on tour in Australia wrestling, and we got married 4 months later. And and he's English.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah, it was wild. And one of my first sponsor that I actually liked, right? Because in the early days, everyone's like, let me be your temporary sponsor. And I was like, fuck off. You have nothing that I want, and I would just run out of meeting in Australia. And she's this sassy Latina from San Francisco, but really she's from South America. And she's like, this is so fucking stupid. We're in a basement on a Saturday night drinking shitty, instant coffee with a bunch of strangers. And I was like, that. And I ran up to her and I was like, will you be my sponsor? And she was like, yeah, bitch, what day are you on? And I was just like, oh my God. And
it's so true though.
When I told her I got married 4 months being my husband, she was like, that's the most alcoholic shit I've ever heard in my life. And I was so pissed off. I was like, how dare you? You don't know me, But then, of course, in hindsight, I was like, yeah, that was pretty alcoholic. Hey. So fortunately, it worked out. And I do believe that my higher power, and if you're struggling with the God thing and you're in early days, look, I did the same thing, coming from the Christian rock background, because I was a born again Christian. I wasn't raised Christian.
Oh, shit.
Eyes in the river and shit. It's hard to go back to that and be like, after you've smoked meth and, you've got a hit list of like over 100 dudes and some women in there of your, your sex inventory and all the rest of the weird shit we did when we're using and drinking. You know what I mean? I'm like, that doesn't feel right. I'm out. Bye. So I with the God situation, and today it's evolved into this wonderful thing. I still don't know who I'm praying to or, what it looks like. Sometimes I imagine it's like a race of aliens for all I fucking know. I don't know. I just know there is a God and I am not it. Right. And that works for me today. So, but I do believe that this power, brought my husband into my life for this divine intervention, because collectively we've been able to create so much change in the world. Right. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. He was the CEO of a national rugby team. And I came on as an assistant strength training coach as a volunteer for like the under 20 team. And a reporter found out that, I had some, how should I put it? Racy photos on the internet from my past. Right. And I mean, look at this, there's a pad in here even like I got a AA and an A cup. I'm not working with much, I wasn't too worried about it, and I'm not that worried about it now. But this reporter went and dug through my Facebook and found my clip store, not CLIT, just for
I was going to say.
CLIP, clip video store, and between my legs, to arm wrestling men and making fun of them for losing, to picking guys up and carrying them around. As I said, there's, it's sexual content, but it's not nude or sex. Do you know what I'm saying?
Overtly sexual, right?
Yeah. And so,
but I mean, they allow that shit to get on YouTube. So what's the big fucking deal?
Exactly. It's really, it's like, it's hysterical. Women can never do anything right. We're either being too slutty or we're too boring. As the green M&M. But WAP at halftime, like, oh, forget about it. You're all sluts now. It's like, well, what do you want? Okay. Do you want being on your Russian friends over in the corner? Or do you want us with a bonnet on? And, like, what is this? Handmaid's Tale? Right. Right. I didn't get savvy. But because of the association, this journalist wrote a headline and had me on the front page of the newspaper, and they picked photos off my Facebook, and the way they just piecemealed it together, it was absurd, but it allowed me to understand how powerful the media is. This headline
was this the Herald?
Yes, actually, it's a Gold Coast Bulletin, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, so that would be
yeah. In fact, I remember Kevin Rudd actually calling him a malignant cancer when he was still Prime Minister, and it actually cost him his Prime Minister position. Neil Mitchell fried him because of it.
Wow.
I remember that story so well. And I mean, they're competing with the Sydney Morning Herald, and, sex sells, sadly, and they'll even put it on the front page.
That's terrible.
And that's the crap about tabloid journalism. They don't realize how many lives they're destroying in the process. I used to critique them so much on the radio.
Well, that's why you are the way that you are. You're
Cut it. We're going back to your story. I'm kidding, Kortney. I'm pulling your leg.
Yeah, you can pull my leg anytime. It read, CEO hires ex-fetish porn star wife to train the under 20s. And it was me looking raunchy. They had this little slutty photo of me in a schoolgirl outfit. I mean, they did an amazing job. And what happened was that
they did an amazing job.
Got syndicated around the world. So it was in Denmark, the UK, India, New Zealand. And what blew my mind was that a year prior, an All Blacks rugby player, this is a different league because my husband's team was in rugby league, not rugby union, but an All Blacks player married like a proper porn star, and the whole country is like high-fiving him, right? Like, great job.
I remember that story.
You're good. Yeah. And then my husband, brings me on, and the journalist went into, she's a alcoholic and an addict and sexual assault and horrific life choices, and just portrayed me as this dirty, trashy piece of shit woman that had no business teaching 18-year-olds and under, and like made me sound like a fucking pedophile. And so, recovery, I can laugh at this shit. At the time, so I only had 3 years clean and sober, maybe not even that. I can't remember exactly. Might have been 2.5. But fortunately, I had just finished step 9. I was doing work on myself. So I was like, fuck you. You can call me a sheep fucker for all I care. I know at the end of the day, I put my head on my pillow. I know that I have not fucked any sheep, right? I know who I am, where I'm going, how I'm getting there, who's coming with me, all this kind of thing. So it didn't bother me that bad. But here's the kicker. The day before this story broke, I had applied with Big Brother, Big Sister because I wanted to mentor a teenage girl. Like, great. I was doing this job in a misogynistic country, right? It's still very much a boys' country back 10 years ago. And doing a male job, or, as a woman in a male dominated industry. And there was still something missing. Like deep down, I knew I wanted to share my story with a younger girl so she didn't make the same mistakes that I did. And, be like, here's what alcoholism and addiction is and how to say no and feel good about it, these kinds of things. And then the story broke, and then I forgot all about the application, except for they called me in January after the country, somewhat reopened, because they take like 3 weeks off out there around Christmas. They're like, hey, Kortney, we got your application. I was like, oh, yeah, hi, great. And they said, looked at your website, love what you're doing. Unfortunately, we can't work with you because of what's going on in media. And that's when it really came crashing down on me. And I was like, someone ripped my heart out with a fork and just stabbed that shit multiple times. And I sat there and sobbed, for a good solid 10 minutes of like just gut wrenching sobbing for me. And after about 10 minutes, I had a God shot, and it was like a wet washcloth, as I say. It was like, bap, just slapped me right in the face. And the words no appeared across my mind. I was like, no. And I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to start my own program, ran by people who've been there and done that, and not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And at that point moving forward, I sat at my kitchen table for 9 months and essentially put together a 2-day, 2-night wellness retreat for teenage girls called Camp Confidence with a K, like Kortney, because it was different, because I'm so different. And
love it.
By God, me too. It was amazing, you guys. We had 62 graduates come through, and, a lot of it, right? So it's called KK, very similar to AA. A lot of the, I brought a lot of the same principles over, and, we don't talk about politics or religion. We have one common bond that unites us, and it's this mission to create this sisterhood, because united we stand, divided we fall. And this is why we make 71 cents to a man's dollar, all these types of things, right? That these girls just didn't have a clue about, talking about Malala, and, getting shot in the forehead for not getting off the bus by the Taliban. Being like, look, you little shits get to go to school. You get to have an education. And showing them the trailer of the movie, The Stoning of Soraya M.
I can't watch that movie.
It's horrific, right? But you show this shit
big time,
and you're like, listen here, you little bitch. And they're just like, oh my God. And by this point, I've built so much rapport. They'd do anything I'd say. And I had such a great team. And these girls come in actively cutting themselves and in, eating disorders and just severely bullied. And they'd leave with 10 new best friends. And, we had the Saturday night, if you knew me, then you'd know, like, so circle sharing, and then they would sit there and counsel each other. It was just brilliant, but to find out working with 10 teenage girls every other weekend in a tiny corner of Australia is very arduous and costly. So my husband let me, just run wild, essentially. And I have no business background, and I just was like a big heart on wheels, if you will. And after, almost 2 years, one of my partners got pregnant, and in the downtime, he said, why don't you take the same vision and mission and roll that into a clothing line, and it'd be the same message. And that's essentially what we did. And it, is today now GRRRL has become Camp Confidence. And, what I tell people is I like to say goals, not controls. And, this is essentially stuff that comes straight from the program, right? It's like a step 3. It's turning our will over and saying, okay, let me focus on the big overarching goal and not all the little tiny controls, like what's the logo look like? What's the fucking color? It's like, no, okay, well, I don't know if it's Camp Confidence or GRRRL or what, but the overarching goal is to create a global sisterhood and teach the tools of self-love and acceptance to women and girls. You know, like, boom, there you go. And by letting go,
self-identity.
because all this time, you know, it's like, oh shit, I felt like I was failing, right? So after like our second year of running these camps, I was like, oh my God, Obama hasn't fucking called me. This is bullshit. You know, I was so big.
Little bit of ego, maybe.
Slightly out of control, you know?
Well,
And
a government grant can't hurt.
Right? Especially out in another
We
country.
just need a couple of thousand. We're just doing it for a good cause. You can write it off as a tax rebate. No problem.
You know? So, you know, realizing that there is a bigger job to do, and, you know, again, turning it over and sharing that message now on a broader scale with everybody and saying like, look, you know, and that's what I'm so grateful for from 12-step recovery. And, you know, there's no wrong way to recover. And I'm realizing now, you know, because of social media, there are a lot of different avenues, you know, and at first I got slightly uppity about it. And I'm like, sober coach, what the fuck? This shit should be free. Like, get out of here with your, you know, and then it's just, I was like, Kortney, you know, you don't get to, that's your shit, you know? And then even considered becoming a sober coach. Like, so it's just hysterical to see, you know, how I've navigated through the sober waters, if you will, and, you know, seeing how everybody else has recovered, and whether it's smart recovery or, you know, whatever works for people. There are people who find CrossFit and they are true alcoholics, but they can manage to submerge themselves into CrossFit and still live a happy life and not work the steps, you know, or get involved in. So there's no wrong way, right? But for me, in my experience, I have so much respect for the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, just to see how, you know, it has truly transformed and transcended world religions and politics. And we are truly global and a part of this fraternity and sorority, but without the alcohol, you know? And that
helped
is
me a lot.
So, yeah. And just to be like, shit, you know, I coming from that place of, you know, we always hear when people are like, hi, I'm Kortney, I'm sober, grateful, recovered alcoholic. It's like, oh, shut the fuck up. Just, yeah, you know, and then to be in that position today. And even though, look, my life is still completely unmanageable most days, right? You could call me a workaholic. I don't know. You know, the desire to drink and drug is more or less left me, except, you know, being a small business owner throughout this pandemic and in a super cutthroat industry, I have had my sobriety tested time and time again over the last couple of years. And coming into that beautiful age, as women do, where you're perimenopause, and I also have Graves' disease, as I believe a direct result from the amount of drugs I've used as a young person, is a thyroid condition. And these two are intertwined, you know, and hormones play such a huge role in our life as women, you know. So from ages 35 through 50 or 55, there's so much shit that can be going on hormonally. And we can't separate whether that's, you know, mental health or, you know, depression, or because it causes so much anxiety and upheaval. In my experience, you know, I didn't sleep for the entire month of January, basically. I slept 3 hours a night on average, you know, due to stress, but it triggered something with my thyroid. And, you know, there were moments where I'm like, holy shit, if I just had 3 shots right now, I'd be done and I could sleep. But the program has taught me how to pause, even though I barely paused this whole last 35 minutes. But I get to pause now, play that tape the whole way through and be like, oh yeah, I remember what happened the last time I attempted to do this over and over and over again. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, it's so awesome that you guys are doing this service. And, you know, when you asked, I was like, hell yeah. The more I can share this with people, because I truly believe that, you know, we're coming into an age where it has become a movement. and it's not just a hashtag. And there's so many people out there like yourselves and, people that are specifically targeting this topic and in mainstream media, normalizing mommy culture, drinking wine and the commercial, and, how there have been authors who've just been like, this is bullshit. And the activists who just like swooped in and were like dropping bombs of comments on, can't remember the brand and what exactly it even was, but it was just remarkable. Yeah, no, I want to say it was a tequila, or maybe it was a orange juice brand or something. But they had a commercial where like mom was going into the closet and drinking mimosa thing.
Well, here's another prime example. I mean, in 2021, there was a great film made called Crisis, starring Gary Oldman, Armie Hammer, Evangeline Lilly, and Greg Kinnear. The whole focus was about addiction. A fictional story centered on the doings and the screwings of Big Pharma, a new product that's now about to come onto the market. The big media or big pharmaceutical company that wants to make money out of this new product. Gary Oldman finds out that it's more detrimental than what it's doing good, and just a whole Pandora's box opens. This was in the heart of the pandemic, so they released it on Netflix, made a crap amount of money, but what happens? The film's reputation got diminished when Armie Hammer supposedly engaged in cannibalism. Somewhere, something, somehow, there's a snake in the grass.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I remember, I do recall seeing that out there now, and I do remember that whole situation. Yeah. So that's really interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Big
it really
time.
is.
There's big money in this world of addiction, and they're using the media to kill it. And that's why I've been such an incendiary critic about it ever since I retired from the business. Because recovery is not just a movement. Yes, we have gotten a whole lot more visibility in the past few years, but now it's starting to become a message of importance. And it's a message that if we can't get it traditionally, we'll do it independently. That's why we have this platform. But in the same sentence, you've got to think to yourself, why isn't Big Corps not willing to share the opposite side? If they can advertise booze, if they can advertise condoms for that matter, why can't we have our platform? Because number one, they can't make money out of it, meaning that we have to pay them to spread the message, and the message is free. Number one. And number two, it's not going to attract any sponsors, corporate sponsors. So if it doesn't have a price tag, out the door you go, Sonny Jim. But make a film like that based on a true story, smudge it by hook or by crook, get it discredited, and everything goes back to normal. I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist. It's just a pattern.
I get it. Chris, when I first got sober, instead of diving into the program, I went down the YouTube conspiracy rabbit hole for 12 months. Spend 8 hours. All this QAnon shit, today, I'm like, where were you guys 12 years ago? Like, come on. This shit is... So it was quite funny. Like my husband would come home and I'd be like, oh my God, do you know who David Icke is? And he's like, who?
David Icke.
David Icke. I didn't know how to say his name though. So it just cracks me up.
Who believes the world has been invaded by lizard people. He's been seeing V far too many times.
Exactly right. And, I actually listened to him lecture all day. It was about 2016, right? Because when I first heard his stuff, I was like, oh my God, there's just no way I can wrap my brain around that. And it got me, I used to get myself so worked up. I gave myself a cold sore, like I would want to stand on the corner and be like, don't drink fucking fluoride. It's going to, you can't talk to the third eye and shit, where's the most obvious place to hide something? Right in plain sight. Like I was antle there for a while. If you go back and look at my Facebook post, you're like, whoa, this bitch is off her rocker, and then once I got into Camp Confidence and had a new obsession, I put all that stuff down, but it's funny how over the past couple of years, it has really drummed up some of that uneasiness and lack of control. Cause I'm like, well, shit, who knows? Who fucking knows if Biden's drinking baby blood? I don't know. But all I do know is that I have no control over it, and it's not going to cause me.
Surely.
Exactly. I mean, everybody's tripping on it. There's so many different things, and each side has their. But going back to the program thing. I mean, without that, I was talking to my mom the other day, and I was trying to explain to her, alternative ways to deal with things, and I said I would not be able to handle these things if it wasn't for AA. I would, they taught me how to live. And I hear you talk a lot, and a lot of the stuff is a lot of the stuff that I have heard, but in action, you have to do it in action, right? And I just kind of trip on the whole. It's like this miracle thing. I can't really explain it, but you know what I'm talking about. Like the miracles, like now you can see why this happened, why you were on this newspaper. It brought you to rebel and start GRRRL, and help all these people. And, it's just amazing. I look back all the time on situations and go, oh my God, that's why I'm selling copier machines. I met my husband and I never met a decent man in my life, So, okay, I'll sell copiers if I'm going to meet the man of my dreams. It's amazing the miracles that we never expect. That's why I love that saying, expect miracles, because it's, every day.
Yep. Yeah.
It takes a lot of work though.
It really, oh my God, does it ever? I'm just talking to a newcomer now who's, on like day 5, just continually keeps picking up and, has a background as an escort. And so he's used to making, a lot of money, and now is working like minimum wage as a server. Yeah. He's like, oh, this is so humbling. This is so ridiculous. And why is this happening? And I'm like, just keep showing up. It'll all make sense.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the track. Probably not today, probably not tomorrow, but it'll all work itself out. You just have to be willing and have an open mind, So yeah, you're exactly right. Expect miracles, because all of that stuff is exactly what has brought me to where I am today, even though at the time it was brutal and looked horrific, but as we walk through the ashes, we have these tools to get us through and to deal with life. And it's fucking free, which is absurd. Like, we have this free self-help program, and, we don't have to. And that has changed a lot for me as well, is really refocusing my language around saying things like, I get to do this. I don't have to do shit. As we say, like, your misery is gladly refunded at the door, bitch. Go back out tomorrow. We don't give a shit. Yes. I mean, clearly. But no one's keeping you here. So yeah, it's remarkable. And, today I'm no idea what God has in store for me next, but I do know that is a constant. And you hear old timers say all the time, oh, it's like a peeling of the onion. You're like, oh, shut the fuck up again, but it's true. Right. Yeah. So now I'm like, okay, interesting. This person's been put into my life to make me realize that I'm still severely codependent. And what do I need to work on next? And well, clearly my ego is still out of control, and what can I do? So, I'll get to look at, I'm doing a leadership program in April called Choice Leadership. And I've become a Psych K master facilitator, which is kind of like NLP on steroids, and understanding the power of the subconscious mind and beliefs, and how beliefs control everything, So whether alcoholism and addiction is learned behavior or hereditary, don't know, but learning how powerful this subconscious mind is, and being able to work with people in various modalities and stuff now is is in my new calling, and being able to show people that we do actually have unlimited potential as human beings. It's just this that limits us. That shit's true. Like the Matrix, that's full on. That's legit, like, a direct reflection of, I believe, what we're experiencing. So,
Yeah.
It's just keep an open mind and continue to do stuff like this and be grateful for the opportunity and, just see what happens next. My husband messaged me, he's out in Australia. He's like, Russia's invaded Ukraine. Can you come home? And I'm like, I am home, hun. Biden's finger is hovering over the nuclear war button. Like, yeah, that's, and I even said something to my social media girl. I was like, hey, if we end up going to war with Russia, let's get fucking hammered. And I laughed. I'm like, no, it's fine. I'm just kidding. I'm only getting hammered if something comes out from the sky. And that's like, no. No matter what. Because then I'll just try and fight. I just turn into like a vicious super cunt. Excuse, I know that word is, forbidden over here in the US. But anyway, I just do everything that I can to not pick up today. And again, I'm super grateful for the opportunity to share my story with you guys.
Well, Kortney, you speak with such invigorating street language that people can relate to. You're like the female opposite of Jack Kerouac, the beat poet.
Jesus.
If I had
Here's something.
memory, I would say repeat what you just said back to me, but I was so in awe. What did you say? Something about street? I don't know. It was beautiful and brilliant. So thank you.
It's only a pleasure. Look at you now. Look at where you started and look what you've gotten today. Correct. A good friend of mine,
Wow.
He's also involved in recovery work in the state of Wyoming, Marty Evans.
Yep.
More or less the same path that you have walked in and out of prison, and he never thought he would make something of himself. Yep. Now, a successful businessman left and right, and the one statement that he keeps on saying to other people, look at me now. Yeah, would you more or less say that would be your statement in a similar context?
You're going to have to hook us up. Marty, what was it?
Marty Evans. I'll send you his credentials.
Beautiful. And that's how this thing works, right? It's like, I don't know Marty, but I want to. And when we meet, it's like we automatically are friends, right? Even if we didn't like each other, because that's what we say in the rooms, right? We're like, we don't have to like each other, but we love each other. And that is what is so brilliant. So for anybody that's new, who's listening, who you're like, this sucks and my life sucks. And yeah, that's possibly true. But when you get down to it, I know a lot of, not a ton, but I know quite a few really rich people who are miserable. They're super lonely. And this program and our fellowship is something that money cannot buy. To be able to have that immediate identification with somebody and be like, bitch, I know you like the back of my hand and you know me and I don't have to explain to you. You don't have to explain to me. But if you're on your ass and needed to crash on my couch, we got it like that. And that's what's amazing about this is we get to do this thing,
There's literally no thought, just pull in, pal. Pull in.
Yeah, 100%. And nobody else out there can really say that, and that's what is so cool about our program and how it is
absolutely
into every other 12-step program out there, and just so much respect.
Bringing it, using it with other people, in the world. It helps so much because we live in such a messed up place. I mean, I don't know how I would get through it if I didn't have these tools, let alone take a drink or a drug. I mean, come on. But Kortney, we really, really appreciate you coming. I absolutely adore you. I always look to you for inspiration. I am not an internet person. I don't like to scroll. Once in a while, if it's animals and stuff, I'm just not one to watch. The only one I'll look at is you because it's worth my time, And, I have your book and I've gone through a bunch of different chapters that I thought I would be interested in because I like to listen. You got to do an audiobook.
Girl, it's on a list of a list of a list somewhere.
Yeah. It's not an easy thing to do an audiobook, I heard. And you've talked about your book. Took you 10 years. It's taking me 10 years, and I still haven't even gotten past chapter 2. It's really hard to go back into those stories and those situations that were just so demented and so messed up. And it's not even about telling people, it's having to not even relive it, because I'm not ashamed of my past whatsoever. It's a task to have to write it all down and to kind of go through it and think about everything that was happening at the time. What was I wearing, and what was how did I feel? And it's a really tough thing to do, to write a book. It's not easy.
No.
So
thank you.
Your book can be found at Amazon, and right?
Yeah. Amazon, and I decided to go the self-publisher route because, when the pandemic hit, the publishing industry just shat the bed. And I thought, it takes 2 to 3 years when you get a book deal anyway. And I was like, well, I don't really want to wait 2 to 3 years anyway. And it's God's will, right? So it's, it's worked. Am I excited about Amazon? No, absolutely not. It shits me right off. Whatever. It is what it is. And I'll be excited to do it. Yeah, it's served a purpose and has helped a lot of people. And it definitely is quite a wild ride for sure. But that's also why I recommend people in early recovery, if you start writing, because I started writing this when I first got sober, because I thought my story stopped when I got into the muscle fetish industry, because I wanted to just tell women, hey, did you know there's some guy out there that'll pay you $400 an hour just to worship your calf muscles? And she, I just left the house thinking my calves were fat because I couldn't get boots over my 18-inch fucking calves. And I'm like, no. Right. But come to find out, my story was really just getting started. But I had so much content from 10 years ago that it helped. And, plus being a full on blackout drinker, completely. And I mean, how the fuck I managed to stay out of prison and not kill anybody aside myself is mind boggling. And to think that I could wake up on any given day and still be ungrateful, for the life that I have today is beyond mind boggling to me, because I just heard somebody talking about their cousin earlier today, that has an addiction, and now they're gone to prison for driving while under the influence. And that was literally me on a daily basis for 9 years. And it's like, how do you, and that's the insanity of this dis-ease, opposite of ease. It's not a crusty penis that's about to fall off. As I say, you're like, oh my God, I have a disease. Oh no. It's like, no, calm down, bitch. It's just dis-ease. It's fine. You're going to be fine. Crusty penis that's about to fall off. So to get to that point and be like, all is well, we recover and we do amazing and remarkable things. And it's simply, just is what it is. I can't drink like normal people or recreationally drugs because I turn into a psycho bitch. It's fine.
That's what I love about
my end. And from my end as well, Kortney, what Danny just said goes double for me. I say again, so articulate and filled with invigorating street language. Congratulations with what you have accomplished, and many, many more. Again, for our audiences, the book is called Crushing It. And what is the name of the app that you designed?
Oh, great question. Thank you. It's so on my website, it's just my first and last name, KortneyOlsen.com. And it is an app. I've got 4 different programs. My main one is called Get Massive. Because I'm all about people adding size and taking up space instead of trying to shrink to look like Kate Moss. No offense, Kate. # not your competition. But, I've got a free watermelon crushing program on my website. It's an 8-week at-home training program, which, of course, is a funnel that leads you to all sorts of other shit. But, yeah, I'm really big into, promoting strength training and getting bigger and not shrinking. So all that is on my website, and from my website you can find the clothing and the book and miscellaneous shit.
You know what, Kortney?
Check
I
it out.
remember during COVID looking at your Instagram, and I think you might have gone through something where you hadn't worked out in a while, and you were just
when I published my book, my thyroid shit the bed again from the stress, and I didn't work out for like 3 months.
You came back so fast, and I'm so in awe of how fast you came back, because I was looking at you and you don't have any problem showing cellulite or rolls or anything. Not that you have, but you don't mind doing the wrong angle, basically, we'll say. And I was amazed when I'm like, how does she get so hard so fast? Because you really did. And I was wondering, with your workouts, I haven't worked out in, well, 5 years, maybe
A
more.
while.
No, it hasn't been that long. I just have had a lot of issues. Neck surgery 2 years ago. It's just been one thing after another. So, do you have any programs for people like me where I wouldn't hurt myself getting started?
Absolutely. We've got it's like our Body Fit program is based off of your body weight and some light weights. It's designed to be done at home. And we got a beginner track, so it's a great segue into training. Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
And you have a clothing company. And what's the website to that?
That is GRRRL.com. So it's girl spelled very special. And that's that's our clothing line. And we don't use sizes, so people will get on there and be like, what the hell is this? So our sizing is based off of athletes' names and body types, as opposed to the stigma that a dude made up in the 1940s from the Department of Agriculture. So women have to actually measure themselves to figure out if they're Amanda Heather or shape Heidi. Heidi is Canada's arm wrestling champion. She just thumps dudes. She's amazing. But she would be more of an equivalent of, like, say, a 3XL or something like that, right? So instead of being like, oh, I have to be this number, which has got this negative connotation to it, it's like, oh, I get to be Heidi. I'm like this 6 foot tall arm wrestler, so.
Gosh, that's cool.
It is really cool. And because of that, we've been able to, our return rate is less than 2%. And we've also transcended, the global sizing issue, because we're a global brand. So if you're in Canada or Australia, because, in Australia, you're like a 8 to 10 or, so across the board, here's who you are, and just focusing on what our body could do as opposed to what it looks like. So it's a really cool deal, So but the opportunity to share that stuff, because that's always helpful, is I keep the revenue coming in to keep the shit rolling.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The hard times come knocking.
That's right.
Yeah. Very proud of you. You're amazing. And thank you so much for coming.
You're one tough cookie, girl.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have some meetup at some point, so I can give you a hug.
God, yes. Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Folks, this has been Doing It Sober Live. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow Danny on Fireside at www.fireside.com/Daniela Park. Alternatively, you can follow me as well, fireside.com/Chris Nell. We'd like to thank you as well for the downloads. We've been seeing great influx of downloads of this podcast. It's been a tremendous privilege for us to create it. Well, the idea is actually Danny. I'm just the passenger. And thanks again, Kortney. You're a superstar in our eyes. Look after yourself.
I will. Thanks, you guys. You have a great one.